One of the hardest things to do when you're trying to break into cybersecurity is to gain real world experience and figure out exactly what you need to learn. And so in this video, I'm going to go over how you can gain experience by actually doing instead of going through tons of certifications and lectures and never knowing exactly how to apply that to the real world. So I'll be going over 5 different projects to teach you different aspects of cybersecurity. The first one is AWS Goat. This is where you're actually going to deploy a infrastructure within AWS and then go through exercises, and this teaches you pen testing. The second project we're going to go through is you're actually going to set up a phishing campaign in AWS. This will prepare you for security operations center type of work. The third aspect is you're going to set up the WAF. The WAF is near and dear to my heart. You're going to learn application security along with infrastructure security. The fourth project prepares you for roles such as an IAM analyst. The third aspect is you're actually going to do an audit within AWS and learn the basics of governance, risk, and compliance. The first one is a phishing campaign. This is when bad actors impersonate legitimate institutions as a way to get potential victims' passwords and information so then they can log on with that account. This is probably one of the most common attacks, and so we're actually going to set up an entire phishing simulator within AWS. Now, this is just for learning purposes. All right, so now we are going to install a phishing simulator so then on your own time, legally, you can practice on what exactly a phishing campaign is. What we're going to do is we're going to start out at the AWS Marketplace. I'm assuming you already have an AWS account. And up at this marketplace, we're going to type in Go Fish Simulator, and we're looking for the one by Hailed Bytes. We're going to click that. This is going to just put continue to subscribe. It's free for the first week. And then we're just going to continue to configuration. We're going to leave all of this the same. This looks good. Continue to launch. And then what we're going to do is choose action. Make sure it's launch from website. EC2 instance, I have Trade 3 medium. You really don't need that big, but I'm just not going to change it. Now for the VPC settings, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch this carefully because you can mess this up. But you're going to want to go to create VPC. You're going to make sure that it's a VPC more. This is a virtual network that you're creating. And by doing the VPC more, it creates the subnets for you, the internet gateways. It does the routing table, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Here, you're just going to go to phishing campaign demo 500. Then for the CIDR block, you're just going to put 172.15.0.0.15, not 15, 24. There we go. IPv6, you can just leave the same one. Availability subnet, number of public subnets, just one. Private, just one. None. You don't need any of that. And for the DNS options, ensure that both of these DNS host names and resolutions are created. Now we're going to go to create VPC. And it is creating, which is fantastic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to view VPC, and then we're going to make sure this A7AC is going to match what we are doing right here. So I have a multiple of them. You may or may not, but we want it to be the same. So A7AC. Now for the subnet, you want this to make sure that this is on the public subnet. If you put this on the private subnet, it's not going to work without doing a bunch of other stuff, which we're not going to go into. So how you can figure that out is you just scroll down here, you have the VPC, and now we're going to look at this, and it will say if it's public or not in the name. Subnet ECF, 5ECF is public. We're going to go back over here, and then we're going to make sure that we're choosing the right one. As you can see, the wrong one was chosen. If I chose that, I wouldn't be able to get to my phishing campaign. And then we're just going to choose that. And then for a security group, we're going to do this. And then we are going to name the security group. I'm just going to name it 500 phishing. That is a horrible name. Don't copy me. Just do something better than that. So here we're just going to go fish. And here you're going to want to create your own key pair settings. I have my own. and then make sure this is saved, and then I'll be able to launch it. Before I go on, I must go back to the VPC. Don't forget to do this because it's very important and will save you a hassle later. I'm going to go to VPC. I'm going to go to that public subnet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to actions. I'm going to edit the subnet and then make sure that this is enabled. So this is going to make sure that instance has an automatic IP address, so then you don't have to go through the trouble of creating one and then associating it. And trust me, it's a pain to do. Now that looks good. So what we are going to do now is we're just going to launch. All right, great. We're making progress. Now I'm going to go over to EC2 instance right here. And then I'm going to go to the instances 2. And then I'm looking for the one with no name. Yours, I did this earlier, so just ignore this. I'm actually just going to terminate that. We're just looking for the one without a name. What you're going to look for is you're going to notice that this is initializing. We're just going to wait until this is finished initializing. I'm going to pause the video and I will come back when this is done. Okay, now that we see 2 out of 2 checks have passed, it took about 5 minutes. So now what we are going to do is we are going to go to this instance and then we're going to just open this address. Now it's not going to work immediately. So we're just going to type in 3636. And we're going to say that the connection is not private. Sometimes Safari will let me. And now we had to go through that clicking. As you can see, now we have this beautiful web page. In order to log in, going to be admin, and I know all of this because I read the instructions. You have to read the instructions. You'll never be able to figure this out of nowhere. And then the password is going to be the instant ID. All right, and now as you can see, we have a dashboard and we can just run campaigns now. I'll have another video going into phishing campaigns and how to set one up. But for now, this is it, and let's move on to the next project. The second project is Azure Goat. Compromising an organization's cloud infrastructure is a goldmine for attackers. Sometimes a simple misconfiguration or a vulnerability in a web application is all that is needed to compromise the entire infrastructure. This goes with any aspect. For instance, HVAC oftentimes has vulnerabilities, and if a hacker can exploit one of those vulnerabilities, they can exploit the entire infrastructure. Let's get started on setting up an entire infrastructure in AWS in less than 10 minutes. We're going to go and install the AWS Goat. The first part of this, you're going to always want to read the instructions right here. We're going to scroll down and then we're going to see installation. Oftentimes these seem really straightforward, but they're difficult. So the first one is you're going to want to fork the repo. Forking the repo is essentially just making a copy within your GitHub. We're going to need to set the GitHub action secrets. Now this we're going to actually have to go into AWS to do. Let's get started. So first, let's fork the repo. We're going to go back up to the top, and then you're going to make sure that you have a GitHub account. If you don't have a GitHub account, you're going to want to do that. Now I'm going to create a new fork. And now I actually had already forked it previously, but that is basically how you're going to do it. So now as you can see, I have this AWS Goat in my GitHub. So I own this, it's mine. So now we're going to scroll down. And the second aspect of this is I'm going to need an AWS account and I need a key with admin privileges. So this is what I need to give this new user. And I need the access key and then the access secret key. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to log into AWS and create a new user. I'm going to go to IAM, and then I'm going to go to users right here. And then I'm going to go to create user demo AWS Goat. All right. And then I'm just going to click next. And then I'm just going to attach policies directly. In the real world, you should always probably try to do it on a group. There should be an administrator access. This is important. It won't work if you don't have the right permissions. I'm just going to click next, and then I'm just going to create user. Now you're going to have a demo AWS user. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure to go to that user, and we're going to need to create an access key. Now, I'm going to delete this afterward, so don't judge me, but I am exposing. You should never expose your credentials online. Just choose CLI and then click next and then create access key. I'm going to show this. All right, this will be long gone by the time you see this. So we're going to see the access key. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go back over to our settings right here, and then we're going to go to code security and analysis. We're going to want to go to secrets and variables, and then we're going to want to go to actions. Now, as you can see, I already have a few of these. And then I'm going to go to repository secrets, and then I'm going to go to new repository, and then I'm just going to paste this, and then I'm just going to copy this. So this needs to match perfectly. And then basically right here, and then add secret. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the secret access key, and then I'm just going to go to new repository secrets, and then I'm going to paste right here. And then I'm just going to copy this, put it right here, and then add secret. Now we have the identity access management. Now we have the proper credentials, so we're able to run this. And now I don't really know what the next step is. We did this part. Now it's from the repository action. Now we're actually going to deploy it. We're just going to go back to the repository. We're going to go to action up here at the top. And then we're going, as you can see, I've done these, but we're going to go to Terraform apply. And then we're going to go to run workflow. And there's two modules. So there's module 1 and then there's module 2. So if we look at what each one of these is, we're going to see module 1 is a blog application, and then module 2 is an HR payroll system. So depending on what you want to do, these are basically just set up infrastructures for you. What we're going to do is we're going to go back, and now we're just going to run module 1. And then what you'll see is you'll have a Terraform apply, and it will, as you can see right now, it's queued. So I'm going to pause this and come back when it is finished. Now it's applying. All right, now that we're back, we're going to see that this Terraform has a check mark by it, which is awesome. So we're just going to click it. There might be an exit code 254 kind of thing, or if it looks a little bit different, that's fine. So now we're going to go to Terraform right there, and then we're going to look for a link that we can log on to. I believe it's going to be under application URL, and then you're going to see a URL that you can log into with. All right, and so basically this means that it did work, and now we can log into our blog application. So we're going to go to log in. I don't have a password, so we're just going to create count bogus 1, 2, 3. Hopefully no one bogus lame. Then you can just put, what is my favorite sport? None. And then choose a password. There we go. Now we're just going to register. All right, now that we went through that whole process, now you're going to notice that we are able to log on, which is awesome. As you can see, here I am, bogus, and then other 2 times that I've been on here. Basically, okay, so there's like some band. Cool. Bogus 1, 2, 3 right here. So then we're going to go to the dashboard. And what we're going to do is now we're going to go back to the AWS Goat, and now we're going to go back to the attack manuals. So these are things that you can actually do. You can do reflected cross-site, SQL injection, sensitive data exposure, and all of that. And then also we have module 2. There's defense things you could do. So you can implement a WAF. You can analyze S3 data events from your S3 buckets, which is pretty cool. And then you can go through these. The next project is just setting up a simple web application firewall within AWS. Takes less than 5 minutes. A web application firewall, or a WAF, is something that you can to monitor web requests that your end users send to your applications. Let's install the WAF. All right, so we're going to go to the top right here, and then we're just going to type in WAF. We're going to go to WAF Shield. The WAF protects your web application from common web exploits. If you want to learn more about these OWASP top 10, basically we're just going to create a web ACL. And now we're just going to click Amazon Cloud Front Distribution. Now, we don't have an application up and running, so we're not attaching this to anything, but I'm just going to name it WAF. We're good here. And now we're just going to click Next. And then for the rules, basically these are the rules that will be attached to your WAF. So if you have a certain signature that you need to update, this is where you would do it. Now you could create your own rules here, as you can see, or we can add a managed rule group. There's a lot of these. There's paid ones, so fraud prevention, protection against fraudulent things, account takeover prevention. So this is $10 per month. Protection for your login page against stolen credentials, stuffing, login attempts, and all of that. You also have bot control. So this is protection against automated bots that can consume excess resources. And then there's like a lot of free ones. So you can play around with these known bad inputs. We'll just add that, like a core rule set. And if this is a WordPress application, you can create a WAF for that. And then you can look more deeply into it if you want to go a little bit deeper. We'll just add that. And then as you can see, there's different ones for different providers. So you could essentially create your own WAF rule set. Default for requests that don't match any rules, we'll just allow this. And then we have these 3 rules here. We can, of course, modify it. It's going to depend on the environment. Then we're just going to click Next. Next, we're going to have sampling options. Sure. All right. And then you're always going to want to test this in the real world. This is just a quick setup. And then that's it. So now you have a WAF. And you could potentially attach this to an application if you wanted to. Yep, it's that easy. The next cybersecurity project that you can do in less than 10 minutes is to learn about Identity Access Management. IAM is a web service that helps you control different permissions to different resources. I'm going to go over a quick Identity Access Management project. Essentially, we're just going to go over concepts like users, groups, and roles. What we're going to do is we are going to go up to the top here, and we're going to type in Identity Access Management. I'm going to go over to users, create user. I'm just going to type in user 1, and then I'm going to add the user to a group. And so this user, I'm just going to create a group. I'm just going to type in demo, and then I'm going to give them administrator access. Now in the real world, they should have lots of paperwork done for this. So then we're just going to create the user group. All right. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to create user 2 right here. And then user 2. And then I'm going to add this user to another group. So this will be demo 2. And I'm going to give them read-only access for an EC2. So basically this provides read-only access to an Amazon EC2. So then I'm going to create this user group name. So it's going to be demo group 2 create user. And there you go. You created an identity access management user, and then you assign them to a group. And now we are going to manage the password policies. If we go back to this main page at Identity Access Management, on the side, you're going to see account settings. Now this account settings is the password policy. And as you can see, you can change this right here. You could just go to edit right here, and then you could do a custom, and then you could make your password require at least 1, and you could just change all of these if you wanted this. Allow users to change their own passwords and save changes. So now you've created a more complex password. And now if you wanted to review all of these changes that we made, what you can do is you can go to CloudTrail over here, and then we're going to look at all of the changes that we made within IAM by going to event history. And then as you can see, You're going to see all of our changes have been recorded in IAM. Here are the resource names, and then here are all of the things we made. We created groups, we attached that policy and that password, and then we terminated those instances and all of that. And yep, that is essentially identity access management. The next project falls underneath governance, risk, and compliance. You're going to do an audit within AWS. You can do different audits for different compliance regulations. It's going to be so dependent on your industry. You could do it on NIST Cybersecurity Framework, NIST 853, FedRAMP, GDPR, HIPAA, architected security. First, we are going to make sure that you logged in to your AWS console as a root user, and you're going to want to open up Cloud Shell. Right here, Cloud Shell is a command line interface. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to open up the Prowler, which is the automation tool that we're going to be utilizing. This is just the Prowler documentation. This is getting started, and so there are dependencies that you have to have in place before running this. We're going to go through those. For the quick start, we have to have PyPy. In order to do that, we need to go to the AWS, and it can be easily executed in AWS Cloud Shell, but it has to have these in order to run. Because Python comes with an outdated version, we need to first install all of these. What we're going to do is we're just going to copy this, and then we're just going to paste. This is going to take a while for you to do. I've already done it, so it might be a little bit quicker. We'll see. And then we will wait. Great. Now that we have this, we're just going to copy, paste, and then enter. Great. Now Prowler, it is the latest version. Yay. So once you have this, it means you're good to go. If we continue, it goes into the high level architecture of this. It is querying show data, and you can run it from basically anywhere. So your workstation, EC2 instance, Cloud Shell. Before this is going to work for you, must go to IAM in AWS. So if you don't know how to get there, you can just click this, and then you're going to go to users, and then you're going to need to go to add users. And then you're going to need to create an account because you have to have separate permissions for this to run. In order to do that, we need to create a user with security audit permissions. So there is actually a privilege for that. And then also S3, and then full access. Now we have Amazon S3 full access and security audit. And then we can just go over to create users. Great. And now what we need to do is we need to configure Prowler to have access to run the scan. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to run the security audit. So this grants access to read security configuration metadata. And then the S3 is going to be useful when you need to output into your S3 bucket. What we are going to want to do is we're going to want to go to AWS configure. And then as we can see, we need to configure this with our access key ID. And so in order to get that, we're going to go to our temp account, and then we're going to go to security credentials. And then we are going to go to create access key. And then we're doing it for the command line interface. And then we just press I understand, and then create access key. Now, you can't get to this after you leave the page. So don't just exit out of it. You can just create a new one, but just as a reminder, I would definitely try to not lose that. But if you do, you can just delete it. And then here, we're going to put the access key, and then we're going to go back, and then we're going to get the secret access key. All right. And then enter. And then for the default region name, this is going to be highly dependent on where you are. You can check with this right corner, and then it'll say North Virginia. So you're going to type in US East 1, or it'll depend on where you are. It does matter. And then the default can be whatever. Now you have configured it to be able to run a scan. In order to run a scan, you have to know the commands. And so this is a super cool tool, as in it has all of these compliance frameworks that you can run. So depending on what you work in will depend on exactly what frameworks you're going to use. So as we see, we have CIS, audit manager, guardrails. We have GDPR, we have HIPAA, we have NIST 800-53, 800-171. We have NIST Cybersecurity Framework, we have PCI DSS, we have Cybersecurity Framework AWS, we have SOC 2. How cool is that? What you can also do to get an updated list is you can just type in this command, copy and paste it, and then you can just type in AWS and it will list all of the compliance. It also has FedRAMP, which was not over here. You can list all of those requirements also, so you can just type in the compliance framework and the provider, and it'll give you an even more detailed list of it. Now, if you want to execute these checks to automate that scan, which is what we're going to do here, we're going to check the CIS benchmarks. Is all you have to do is you just have to copy this like this, and then you just change out the compliance framework, get rid of the brackets, and then type in CIS 1 for AWS. So you're going to replace it with that, and then you're going to press enter. And now it's basically doing the scan for you. So while we wait, I will show you. If we pull up back that document, basically it's going through this right here. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? In the last video, you were going through this manually, and it gets really cumbersome really quickly. But thankfully, there are tons of awesome tools, and the cloud just makes it even easier just to automate this. When working at a job, you may not actually do this because sometimes as a third-party auditor, you're going to have to manually go through it because a lot of times automations aren't correct. All right, so now that our scan is good, now we can download it to view more. So in order to do that, you have to have an S3 bucket. And so you can actually copy this and then download it to your S3 bucket. You're going to want to copy this, and then you're just going to type in AWS S3 CP, and then you are going to put that, and then you're going to pipe it to your S3 bucket. That will be hard to do if you don't have an S3 bucket, so you need to make sure you have an S3 bucket. So you're just going to go to S3, and then you're going to need to go here and then get the name of your bucket. And if you don't have a bucket, you can create a bucket fairly easy. Yeah, it doesn't take very long to do. So you just go to create bucket and then fill in the settings. And then hopefully this works. So I'm going to replace this with my bucket name, and then it should output. Hopefully this works. So it looks like it did work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go over to my S3 bucket, and then I'm going to clear this, but go inside the bucket. And this is just a storage place. And then I'm going to try to find it. And it looks like I did find it. So here it is. And then I can download this right here, and then I can open it. And here we go. So basically, this is the CIS benchmarks, and then it went through everything. So the attributes, the level, the description of it, what exactly it did. And then it's right here, it's not enabled. So it gave you the notes. It says right here, it was automated. So you didn't have to worry about that. Right here, it says fail. So what is the status of each check? As you can see, I have a lot of fails. So not good. But yep, from there, you also have this beautiful framework result. So as you can see, I only have 18 passes. And then if you want to continue, you can also remediate these findings. If we look at that CIS document, after every finding, there is going to be basically a remediation, in which case you could do. And then you are hardening AWS Cloud, and you can put that on your resume. It seems very simple, but by doing this, it is super powerful because you're automating compliance checks, which is extremely valuable to any company. If you go in there and say, I have automated checks with AWS Cloud, you're going to be ahead of a lot of people. So if we look at jobs, we just type in auditing, automating. Compliance analyst right here. Basically, what you have done is you assess and reviewed systems to identify potential security weaknesses, recommended improvements to amend vulnerabilities, implemented changes, and documented some upgrades. You also researched and developed and implemented customer requirements for information security in order to protect information. You perform security compliant assessments on controls, processes, and reported on the findings. You tracked, monitored, ensured non-compliant findings are remediated. You help identify controls to improve compliance and security program improvements. You implemented and monitored security measures for the protection of all environments, including compute, storage, data, services, networks, and information security. So if you look here, you did do that. So we looked at identity and access management, simple storage services, EC2 cloud, logging, monitoring, and network. Don't let the job descriptions scare you because sometimes they can be scary. If you have any questions, let me know and I will be happy to answer them. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye. Prowler is an open source tool that assists in AWS security assessments, audits, and hardening. If you are interested in building out more projects and upgrading your tech career into cybersecurity, I do have a free masterclass below that shows you step by step on how you can upgrade your tech career. So make sure to check that out. The link is below in the description, and I'll see you there. Bye.